Alright, so Mogamu came out with a video called How to Fix Warframe, and within the video he explains that Warframe is pretty lackluster for veterans, so meaning that, there's just not a lot of content in the game to basically do, not necessarily to play around with, because we have all these cool weapons and warframes and stuff. And he goes on to talk about how there are a lot of problems within Warframe that a lot of players might point towards and say, well, if these here certain problems were fixed, then Warframe would be a great game. But then he says that that's not necessarily the case, and then he just basically blames lack of content being the reason. And for the most part, I do agree with most of the things that he says in the video, apart from his solution to it. While his solution is pretty nice, I feel like that solution wouldn't be a long-term solution in terms of adding content into the game. Of course, we would get like a piece of story or lore every single month. It would be awesome. But in terms of the longevity and keeping people coming back to the game constantly, like a few years down the line, then I don't think that would necessarily be the correct route to go down. It's something that Digital Extremes should definitely consider, yeah, but in terms of being a long-term goal and something that they should 110% focus on to increase player retention, maybe not so much, because I feel like the core values of Warframe is kind of in its gameplay and taking advantage of how awesome and how smooth the gameplay actually is, making something that's replayable and rewarding for the player. Because he goes on to talk about how, we should take advantage of the lore, we should release like monthly or weekly increments of the lore to keep people coming back from the game, which, like I said, is a great idea. It's just the longevity of it. The developers will, eventually run out of ideas and then just say, okay, well, the story ended, so we can't really do anything unless they sort of make something up, which might lead to more lackluster content in terms of storytelling and might piss a few people off who, really dive deep into the lore. He did compare Warframe to a lot of other games on the Steam charts, with Path of Exile being one of them. And that was one of the very few free-to-play games that was on the Steam charts that was way further up there compared to Warframe. And the reason for that being is I feel like it has sort of a mixture of everything. It has those really cool gameplay aspects, it has the story, it has that veteran content within it. However, Warframe, if we're trying to suggest a solution for it, we have to be suggesting a solution for all of those areas instead of just suggesting, oh yeah, let's add story in monthly increments or bi-weekly, whatever the case may be. We have to suggest a solution which is more of like a general sort of thing, which everyone can sort of just jump in and play whenever they want to. Yeah, like I said, the story idea is a great idea, and it's definitely an addition that I would like to see in the game, but it would have an end to it, is basically what I'm trying to say, and that's why I don't really see it as a super long-term thing the Digital Extremes should necessarily be working on. They should be working on something which keeps players coming back to the game. Myself, personally, I love the old Void Relic system, or the Void Key system, when you jumped into a Void Key and then you were in an endless defense or something of the sort. It gave you that sense of, okay, well, I'm in this super hard mission now, I'm going to try my best to survive for as long as I can. I'm really, maximize my potential with this one relic, or key, should I say, because that's what it was back in the day. That was cool, and that's what attracted me towards the game, and that was sort of almost like the gameplay, because it was the gameplay that was bringing me back. That was just kind of the thing that solicited that gameplay, that thing, that one key that made it so that I had this really cool environment to jump around in and really survive in and really test my own skills. That's what drew me to the game, and that's something that I feel they should be working on. He then goes on to talk about, the variety in the game and how there's a lot of stuff in the game. I think the term that he used was, you're dressed up looking fancy with nowhere to go, which is what I'm getting at here as well, We have the Void Relics, which are very low-level missions. We have, the Star Chart, again, very low-level missions. And then whenever you get into the higher tier of missions, you get, you just abuse crowd control. You bring frames like Vauban, or Rhino with a range build, Nova with her Slova build, Loki with a radial disarm build, and it just turns into this boring sort of ability spam type thing, which isn't challenging or fun at all. And that's really what Warframe has, I guess, turned into. There's no middle ground there. It's either, okay, well, you're either strong enough to kill every single thing on the map, or you're too weak to the point where you have to single out enemies, focus them as an entire team, or just make the enemy completely useless by crowd controlling them and being that squishy sort of Warframe that you are. There's no middle ground. There's no, okay, well, these enemies are kind of challenging, but I'm kind of strong. It's just you either one-shot the enemies or the enemies one-shot you. There's no middle ground, which then leads into that sort of whole, okay, damage needs to be looked at argument. But again, at the same time, that's not the main problem. The problem is the content that's within the game, and it's sort of suggesting a solution for that problem of that lack of content, which Mogamu was trying to get at, which again, I agree with. You know, you should be adding in increments of the story, but the thing with that there is there's no sort of longevity to it. They won't be able to sort of continue Warframe's story forever. You know, of course it would be a nice sort of fix for this next year, you know, 2017, having those lore increments every sort of month or in a bi-weekly experience. That would be great. But in terms of dragging the story out in the space of like 2 years, it took Digital Extremes like what, you know, was it 6 months or so to make the War event with, and that was a very limited amount of cinematics. Of course, they were awesome cinematics and stuff, but that was a very small piece of lore crammed into such, you know, a very small piece of content that took a very long time. And like he says in the video, you know, he's not necessarily asking for massive, large cinematic experiences, but he's asking for just very small lore increments like events or something. But events are limited time. Like, we already have basically what he's suggesting in the game, but the thing is, it's in the form of events, and events aren't replayable. And that's why I've never really liked events within Warframe, because for the most part, they've been rewarding. They've gave you a limited sort of time weapon, like let's say the Ignis Wraith, for example. But the thing is, you can never go back and experience them again, you know? So in my eyes, I looked at it as almost a waste of time from the developers. Of course, it's nice to have in like this sort of community-driven thing, but you know, it's just wasted content, because they could be focusing on something that they could keep in the game permanently, which would keep a player's attention, you know? Something like a middle ground sort of level defense or something, which gives you some sort of reward which you could take into some other form of content, which might be like harder, or like a weapon that you need to kill certain enemies. It's really hard to recommend things for Warframe because of how it's set up, and that's why, like I said, it's just super hard to recommend things for it, because you're either the super strong space ninja guy, which can nuke everything with the press of a button, or you're the super squishy die in one shot guy. Like, there's no middle ground, and it's hard to suggest content for a game that's like that. It's hard to make content for a game that is like that, you know? And that's why they use the excuse of new Warframe, new weapon. It's this sort of cart at the end of the stick sort of method that they use to bring new players in and get them chasing that to keep them playing. And myself included, you know, I do it too. I come in and I get that new Warframe, that new weapon, but it's easier for me being a Digital Extremes partner. It's also easier for me because I'm a veteran player who has a lot more experience in the game. You know, I can put on the right combo elements, or elemental combos. Messed up my words there. But yeah, I can do all that. I have the platinum to purchase, you know, these new Warframes, these new weapons. Other players don't do that, and those are the players who make up for the amount of, I guess, players who are playing the game at any given time. The veteran players just get their stuff, they log off the game, they wait for the next thing to come out, and then once that new thing comes out, they hop on, they get the thing, and then they get off again. And that's basically Warframe. That's how it goes around. It goes in that sort of cycle of, okay, we'll just log on, we'll get this new thing, and then we'll log off again. What Mogamu is trying to get at in terms of this is we're getting all this cool stuff within the game. We have all this content, we have these weapons, we have these cool mods, we have all these things which make our Warframe stronger, but for how strong we are within the game, you know, it's super hard to justify going for things that will make you even stronger past the point of, let's say, having a fully maxed out Excalibur or a fully maxed out Soma Prime, because there's really no need for it. You're just getting like a tiny sort of percentage increase. It's kind of like diminishing returns if you think about it, because you're still going to one-shot them anyway. Maybe it might let you go on for like another 5 waves or something, but like, you know, you're not going to necessarily go like another 200 waves and a defense or something because you have an arcane. You know, there's just no point in going for that arcane. There's no point to play the raids. There's no point to play the sorties because the riven mods are just so unrewarding. And even at that, the riven mods in itself was, I almost want to say, a really bad idea because it just introduced more grind into the game. Like I said, it's hard to talk about because it's hard to make content for a game which is so focused on making your character stronger. And whenever you try to make your character stronger, you make all the content which beforehand, if you were to introduce something that maybe bumps up the difficulty a little bit and maybe gets you that middle ground, you're going to want to get stronger past that point once you hit the middle ground, and you're just going to keep on going in this endless loop of, okay, well, my character is constantly getting stronger, keep on providing, you know, harder content, and it's just going to get to the point where enemies are like level 3000 if you do go down that route, which is just ridiculous. You know, they're never going to go down that route. So it's really hard to offer up I want to say, just a solution to the problem that Warframe has, the lack of content, the lack of things to play. It's not necessarily that there's a lack of things to do. It's a lack that there's a lack of things to use the things that you did to get the cool things with, if that makes any sense at all. So you're doing things to get things to do more things which don't exist in that sense. So it's really suggesting, okay, well, what do we need to put in the game so players can play? Like a survival mode, which, you know, maybe they have to sort of work their way up in that survival, a defense mode. Warframe has it all in that regard, but it's just how strong you are and how non-rewarding it feels, which is what they have to fix. And I don't know. I just wanted to make this video because I agree with what Mogamu says, even though I don't think it's a long-term solution, but it's all about starting that conversation and really like going off on a tangent of all these different ideas. How can you fix Warframe's lack of content? What game mode would you introduce? What thing would you introduce to give that game more of I want to say, a life in terms of, let's say, replayability? So, you know, Call of Duty had a zombies mode. Mass Effect Andromeda has its own sort of multiplayer mode where you survive versus waves, you do objectives within that game mode, different things like that there. Warframe can do it all. We've seen the potential. It's just implementing that there into the actual flow of the gameplay, which is the main issue, at least in my opinion anyway. So leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. Just tell me what you think. How would you fix Warframe? It's all about the discussion, and that's why I made this video in the first place, because I feel like Mogamu's trying to start a discussion as well, and I feel like just, you know, talking about it in a video kind of skyrockets that a little bit more and pushes it a little bit further. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.